Hello and welcome to Big DJ DTV. Today I am going to present to you that drama film called Eton. Spoiler ahead, take care and good viewing. The film begins in 1904 in Switzerland, or a few men forcibly transport a woman somewhere. The woman's name is Sabina and she suffers from a mental disorder called hysterical, a disease where the patient loses control of her emotions. Sabina is taken to the hospital psychiatric to be treated there. One young Swiss doctor, Carl Jung, will be in charge to treat her. Said they'll just talk for a while, hour or two most days, for the treatment. He believes in the concept word associations to determine the condition of his patients. Jung is sitting behind Sabina so that she don't feel intimidated. He asks her what, which triggers his crisis, and Sabina responds, all kinds of humiliation. Humiliations made him sweat. When she was a child, her father had her hit and then forced him to with his wife pregnant with me, and he reads the papers at Sana. He learns that Sabina is well educated and what aspires to become a doctor. One day Jung explains to him that this treatment method, the towing cure, has been proposed by Dr. Freud, but he still hasn't established the big lines of psychoanalysis. Jung could so be the first person to experience it. Later Jung walks with Sabina and tries to know more about her condition, but Sabina herself gets angry and throws his coat. When he picks it up, he hits it with his stick. What triggers the trouble of Sabina? She rips off his coat and asks to return to the asylum. After some time, Jung visits him and tells him he talked to the manager general of his interest in medicine. Now Sabina can help her occasionally in his research. Then Jung realizes an association of words on him. That's why Sabine was going to certain words and Emma has to say it. First word that comes to mind. After hearing them after the procedure, Sabina concludes that his wife think a lot about her pregnancy, which is obvious, but she is also worried about the makes Jung lose interest in her. Jung is impressed by the analysis of Sabina after a while, and Madonna birth to a baby girl and apologizes from Jung for not having given that boy. The latter asks him to stop to be ridiculous because it is also happy with the girl during the session. Next, with Sabina, he dives more deep in his memories. Sabina reveals that when she was 4 years she broke a plate, then her father spanked her naked, but in fact she liked it and it turned her on. Since then all kinds of humiliation likes it, and that's why she ripped off his coat when Jungle struck. That's why she thinks she should ever get out of asylum. 2 years later, Jung and Emma come to meet the doctor Sigmund Freud. Freud asks, how are you, Sabina? And Jung responds that she will much better now they have it enrolled in a medical school and she is doing very well. Both men then spend hours talking about psychoanalysis and how dreams affect people's minds. They spent 13 hours discussing their ideas and their theory, and Jung returns to Switzerland. He meets Sabina and tells him that Freud is not exactly what he imagined. He is obsessed with representing each symptom in sexual terms, and its disciples are not at all impressive, believe that there are other reasons than the sex, and he wants to follow his own ideas. A little later, Sabina asks if she can be a good psychiatrist, and Jung answers in the affirmative. He did not hear only good things about his report university, and she is exactly the kind of person they need. Now Freud is writing a letter to Jung and asks him to take care of one brilliant but erratic analyst, Otto Cross, and he must keep Otto with him until October. Jung learns Cotia was abused by his father and that he is a big supporter of the polygamy, while Jung commits only wife Emma and finds monogamy more autologic, and it is even to convince Jung having sex with his patients. But Jung is inflexible and finds it weird. Afterwards, sometime he meets again Sabina, who expresses her idea of the sexuality. She says she studied a lot of sexual topics to the university and what is it now, more aware of the fact that she has no sexual experience. Then she suddenly kisses Jung and asks him to come to his building if he wants to take the initiative. Jung then speaks to Otto, who asks him to go to Sabina's building and to give her the simple pleasure or that she desire. Jung is still not sure that it's the right thing to do, but to some powerful tips for the convince. After that, at the rate becomes physically with an asylum worker and then escapes from the place. Using the ladder, Jung visits her room and finds his work on the polygamy and the pleasures it takes away. Convince and will meet Sabina. They become immediately intimate, and this indulge in intimate daytime activities. Next, Emma offering a bow to Red Veil that he always desired. This simple gesture of love puts him in front of one dilemma: should he continue his affair or no? But Sabina convinces him to continue his affair and asks him to be fierce with her and to punish her, as his father used to do. Meanwhile Emma gives birth to a baby boy, and Young is nice to see it, but soon enough it ends by having intimacy with Sabina in the boat. Time passes and Young goes meeting Fred. The latter tells him that he should never have sent her auto, but Eam replies that he helped him crystallize a large part of its thought after the departure of self. Freud wants to adopt him as Emily. Young then is not sure. He expresses his desire to study telepathy and parapsychology, but Freud wants him to focus on Jung's sexual theory, openly say that he does not agree with him, and suddenly a wood creaks. Young said he knew something like it was going to happen because he felt a sensation in his diaphragm. Think it's ridiculous, but Young predicts that it will happen again, and it does. Produces the wood cracks. Freud thinks always it's a coincidence, that which confirms Jung's suspicions about his close-mindedness. Then we see Jung spank Sabina, and apparently Lexic. Their liaison is still in progress. One day Jung and men Freud take a boat ride. Freud reveals that there is a rumor, which short in Vienna rumor has it that Jung is made of one of his patients' mistress. He later tells Sabina about it and tells him that he feels guilty and divided, so he decides to end their affair, but she tries her best to prevent them. Jung goes away reluctantly. One day Sabina enters with anger in Jung's office, and he asks why he told his mother about their bond. He replies that his mother was already at current. He made a stupid mistake by committing to this link, and now he is only a doctor and was going his furious patient. Sabina takes a knife on the table and cut it. Incredulous Jung face watches her go. Sabina then writes a letter to Freud and asks him to meet him because that would benefit both of them. She also mentions her relationship physics with Jung in the letter. Freud decrees therefore a letter to Jung and him asks about this woman, but Jung replies that she was just a friend, and that it is probably an attempt at revenge because he is not fallen into these techniques of seduction. Jung also asks Freud to serve as an intermediary between, because his wife has already done him a lot of harm. Freud and sends a response to Sabina there, denies seeing her meet, and says that Jung is not capable of a behavior so shabby and that he should settle their problems even without appealing to an intermediary like him. This answer breaks Sabina's heart, who goes again to the Lion office. To his surprise, Jung gets ready. Already from leaving, she apologizes if he has to, leaving because of her, but Jung said that he was going to leave anyway. Her then confronts him with the fact that there is their relationship to leave. He says this and none of to write a Freud letter and tell him everything so that Freud can take as a patient. He agrees to control the informs that it leaves in America. Sabina tells her it's fine for him and leaves Freud's office. Receives the letter from Jung, confesses his relationship, so he writes to Sabina and apologizes. He appreciates his way of managing the conflict and agrees to meet her. Freud and Jung then climb onto the ferry to leave for America, where they are going to show their theory on the psychoanalysis to the rest of the world, but even on the ferry they're in disagreement with each other over many stitches and a crack in them. Friendship is clearly felt after that. Jung is describing his dream for Freud's analysis, refuses to describe his dreams or made me angry. Even during the conference he underlines the mistakes of the other and send them back to each other. The arguments this further reinforces the bitterness of their relationship, and all the world sees them as Jung in Switzerland to work on his thesis. However, they begin again a physical relationship, and Jung asks her not to leave this time, but her is determined and decides to leave this time. 2 years later in Vienna, Sabina became a psychiatrist and meets Freud to discuss his theory. She thinks that the activity sex is an act that is both productive and destructive because it can create a new being from destruction of two people. Jung should work together to solidify the foundations of the psychoanalysis. My breaks do not want to work with Jung because of their differences. However, he confides when even some of his patients at Sabina. Jung and Freud exchange letters for a while in an attempt to resolve their differences, but to no avail. Freud then decides to put an end to his relationship with him and writes him a last letter. A year past, Sabina one day meets Emma in her garden. She is now married, pregnant, after some discussion, and is not himself since he stopped talking to Freud, and he doesn't sleep well. Sabina accepts and go talk to Jung. L sits next to him and realizes that he is no longer like before. Jung him reveals that he constantly dreams apocalyptic or flood causes the death of thousands of people. What prevents him from sleeping correctly? The subject passes to Freud. Jung reveals that Freud lost her when he refused to share his dream. In order to protect his authority, wants to develop a method that does not content to treat patients, but helps them find out what they can be. Jung he wants always be with Sabina, but who that can do nothing for now. In the end, from the film we learn that Otto is dead, hungry in Berlin. Freud was driven out of Vienna by the Nazis and died of cancer. Sabina trained some of the analysts, the most eminent of the new Union Soviet, but was shot down in a nervous breakdown to become the main psychologist and passed away peacefully in 1961. Be sure to subscribe for be able to watch more movie summary like this. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe you.